Nijinsky cruising up on the outside, as smooth as silk, with a furlong and a half to go. Is
Nijinsky's achievements fired my imagination as a child. As speculation grew in 1970 that he would attempt the Triple Crown, I started to read up avidly on what that meant. I became so intoxicated by the idea that on the eve of the St Leger, I could barely sleep. I vividly recall the day itself. Watching on the colour TV we'd not long had, shouting the house down as Lester Biggott, wearing those silks of green, red and yellow, moved into the lead. Nijinsky was trained at Ballydoyle in Ireland by the legendary Vincent O'Brien, and as a 3-year-old he was quite brilliant. After travelling smoothly, he was barely extended to beat the youthful miler Yellow God in the 2000 guineas. In the Derby, the victim was different, but the story was the same. Nijinsky picked off the highly regarded French raider Gia with ease, showing his trademark turn of foot. Approaching the St Leger, Nijinsky was unbeaten after 10 races, but a bout of ringworm affected his preparation. Sheer ability got him through though, and he became the first horse since World War II to take the Triple Crown. On Saturday, Camelot bids to become the first horse since Nijinsky to win the Triple Crown. Remarkably, he's the first horse since Nijinsky to even try it. There are several reasons why we've had to wait 42 years for an attempt. First, the range of distances is so daunting. The Triple Crown asks the horse to win the 2000 guineas over a straight mile at Newmarket, the Derby over 1.5 miles of undulating terrain at Epsom,
with Rarity, Rockroy, Charlton,
and finally the extended stamina test of the St Leger, run over more than 1 3/4 miles here at Doncaster. You might equate that to a young 400-metre runner going on to dominate his peers over 800 and 1500 metres. Second, there's the time span. It requires a colt to be the best of his generation in May in the 2000 guineas, June in the Derby and mid-September in the Leger. Third, and most significantly, for commercial reasons, in recent years even attempting the Triple Crown is frowned upon. Since 1970, only 2 horses, Nashwan in 1989 and See the Stars in 2009, have made themselves eligible for an attempt at the Triple Crown by winning the 2000 guineas and the Derby, a hard enough feat in itself. The St Leger wasn't even on the radar for either horse. Speed has become the overwhelmingly dominant criterion for the modern breeder, seeking to create a commercially attractive stallion. So running their horse over no further than 1.5 miles, or preferably even dropping down to 10 furlongs, is the way to go. Thankfully, this short-sighted fashion may now be changing, with the likes of 2001 Derby winner Galileo proving so good and versatile at stud. He was at his best over 1.5 miles as a racehorse, and yet sired the mighty Frankel. Credit to Coolmore and his trainer, Aidan O'Brien. For once, a campaign has been mapped out for sporting reasons rather than mere commercial ones. Can Camelot turn ambition into reality? Like Nijinsky, he's unbeaten, but he hasn't achieved as much at this same stage of his career. He hasn't yet taken on his elders, for example, but he's only running half the races that Nijinsky had. We know he has the class. Wins in the 2000 Guineas and Derby tell you that. Now he has to prove he has the stamina. He has to run over 2.5 furlongs further than he's ever travelled before, something that's easily underestimated. If he manages it, he will have earned the right to be compared to Nijinsky, one of the best thoroughbreds of modern times and certainly the most versatile. If he does, he will have scored a significant victory for daring and tradition over commercialism and fashion.
Well, Steve and I have been joined by Lydia on the famous finishing straight here at Doncaster. Lydia, obviously Steve is the only one who would remember Nijinsky, but it was a fascinating tale listening back to those days, Steve. On a serious note, the good thing about what we're about to see is something that I think, certainly I don't remember a chance of ever seeing a horse complete the Triple Crown, but here we are, 42 years after Nijinsky did it. It might actually happen again.
Like you, I thought I would never see this. I mean, as Steve mentioned in his piece, it's difficult enough to win the 2000 Guineas in the Derby, but then to stretch out to win the St Leger as well. And I thought in these days where stamina is such a dirty word, that I would never, ever get to see this. And I'm so excited that I am, that the likes of Galileo, the likes of Monsieur has meant that stamina isn't so completely out of fashion, and it is valued. I think it's it's a marvellous thing, that a race that I love anyway, the St Leger. I think it's a fantastic race. Every year I look forward to it, probably most out of all the classics. The fact that it's got Stardust glittering from it because of Camelot's participation is amazing. I'm so excited.
Do you think that with Coolmore taking the principle, setting the precedent of campaigning Camelot over a mile, 6.5 furlongs, it might get people thinking, well, it's not such a bad thing?
I can't think of anything in racing I feel more strongly about. There's been a campaign to make the Leger over shorter, even the Derby over shorter. I can't think of more madness or opening it up for older horses. It's just rubbish. It's something we should be cherishing, something we should take as being a real virtue of British racing, that we have this. And how can stamina be a dirty word? I can't think of another sport where this happened. We've just sat through the Olympics. Were we all bored when Mo Farah won the 10,000 metres? Did we say, oh, let's just have Usain Bolts all the time? Great though he is, having different distances and different attributes that horses then take to stud is absolutely vital for the breed. And I'd have stamina and braveness and tenacity, something which winning up the long straight of the Leger requires, as right up there with the best attributes you can have for the horse.